Republicans a lot of time to reconcile around it. I mean, Senator Kennedy told me yesterday that
Good morning, and thank you so much for waking up with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Jeanne Francine, here with you for the next few hours to give you all of your breaking news alerts, top stories, and of course, your live events of the day. If you are just now tuning in as we come on the air, it is Thursday, May 1st, or as I like to call it, Friday Eve. It is the first of a new month. And as we embark on the month of May, we do want to begin with your top political headlines, taking you out to the White House as we are 2 minutes shy from the top of the 6 o'clock hour. A lot to get to in your political headlines on this Thursday. We do know today Vice President J.D. Vance and the administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, they will both travel to South Carolina to tour Nucor, that's Steel Berkeley, a steel manufacturing facility. Vice President Vance and Administrator Zeldin will deliver remarks highlighting America's manufacturing renaissance during the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And of course, we have covered that in detail right here on Live Now from Fox. We know the commander-in-chief, he has a busy day as well. Also today, President Donald Trump will deliver commencement speech at the University of Alabama. Also this morning, we know the White House, they are slated to have a press briefing at 8:30 this morning Eastern time. So a lot to discuss and dissect. We want to bring into the conversation none other than Miami GOP committee woman, Angie Wong. Angie, good morning to you. A pleasure having you on the show.
Hey, thank you so much and good morning.
Good morning to you. So let's first start off with VP Vance and, of course, Administrator Zeldin. We know they are traveling to South Carolina on today to visit Nucor, Steel Berkeley. Let's discuss this. This coming on the heels of the official 100-day mark for the Trump administration. We've seen White House press briefings throughout the morning times here on Live Now from Fox with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Border security, transportation, the economy, several things that the White House is touting as wins for the Trump administration and the Republican Party. But now we are transitioning to see VP Vance put eyes on the latest of manufacturing, steel manufacturing. What does this mean as a lot of eyes are on tariffs and trade wars?
Absolutely. So much newsing going on today. Well, I will say that we have to focus on the renaissance of bringing back manufacturing to America. We've put all this focus on tariffs, but no one's talked about actually bringing jobs and manufacturing back here because we need tariffs only because we don't produce anything just yet. So we need to bring those industries back. And that's why Lee Zeldin and J.D. Vance are touring America. Ever since Congress came back into session on Monday, we have seen the Trump administration in full force. They're coming out doing press conferences every day, showing us the metrics of their work. It's only been 100 days. So we're already seeing all the great things that they have already done and accomplished in the first 100 days. Now, steel is extremely important because this comes on the back of a deal that was being already brewing prior to Trump coming onto the administration, the Nippon Steel deal, where Japan was trying to buy U.S. steel for $15 billion. Trump campaigned on blocking that deal because the United Steelworkers Union said this is not good for America. So all of this is showing off that Americans can produce steel and that we want to bring back American jobs. And this is great for our defense industry. This is great for our just our homegrown domestic supply chain and all the things that we have to manufacture in order to, well, be self-sufficient and less dependent on foreign entities.
Angie, thank you so much for that detailed breakdown. Also this morning, we are looking at the very latest of the Commander-in-Chief. We do know he will be traveling to deliver a commencement speech at the University of Alabama. This is the very latest from President Donald Trump via his own Truth Social. It says, quote, "I have agreed to do the commencement address at two really great places, the University of Alabama and West Point." He says stay tuned for times and dates, but obviously that date is today. How exciting is this for the Trump administration? If we look back a few days, we know that he already had the Super Bowl champions, the most recent ones, the Philadelphia Eagles, at the White House. And we also have this, I want to share this as well, Angie, this coming in down from the Alabama Crimson Tide. It says breaking, Nick Saban will join Donald Trump as he gives a commencement address to the university's graduating class of 2025. The event scheduled to take place Thursday at the University of Alabama, 6:30 p.m. in Coleman Coliseum. Of course, we will have that here on Live Now from Fox. But a lot of questions this morning surrounding this commencement speech. What does this mean for Alabama? We do know this is the South. This is the Bible Belt. This is a red state.
Absolutely. This is the flagship university of Southern universities. You have young, conservative patriots there. He is going to be speaking to his crowd for sure. He's going to highlight the golden age of the new Americas, right? It's going to be about jobs, 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 and the importance of American dominance. He's there to inspire the next generation. Everybody wants this vote. They want the youth vote, both sides, Democrats and Republicans. And it is the last stronghold of Democrat voters. Look, Donald Trump in the past election cycle, he's taken the Latino votes, he's taken the Black votes, he's taken the Asian votes. There's not that much left that Democrats can really claw into. And everyone's fighting for the youth vote because we know that if we capture them now, that we're going to have them for generations to come. And right now, it's fun. It is fashionable to be Republican. So he's definitely talking to the choir, but at the same time, he's inspiring them because they're going to grow up and have their first jobs in the new America where American dominance is going to be back. So I think this is an exciting time. And the fact that he's wrapping it up in sports, I mean, we know that Donald Trump loves to win and he loves winners and he loves champions. So it makes perfect sense to me that he's going to have the football coach with him today.
Yeah, President Donald Trump definitely loves sports. I mean, we've seen him in the sweet boxes at several NFL games. Angie, one thing I want to highlight, because obviously we want to discuss both sides of the aisle here on Live Now from Fox. A lot of eyes on this commencement speech, especially because if we look back in time to the Biden-Harris administration, we know that former President Joe Biden, he spoke at Morehouse College, that historically Black college and university out in Georgia. And depending on who you ask, they say that commencement speech did not go so well. This was during the time when there was a lot of conflict out in the Middle East. That conflict still exists, but it was at that prime with Israel and Hamas. You had people also in the audience raising their fist, turning their chair around, even on the stage, some of the faculty, because they weren't pleased with how the Biden-Harris administration was handling relations with Africa. Provide that perspective, because a lot of concerns about how will this commencement speech go, do you think there will be protests like we've seen at commencement speeches related to Middle East conflict or other world entities?
Well, college campuses have traditionally been the hotbed for political activity. And this Trump speaking at the University of Alabama should be a breeze. It is his crowd, it's his people, but it also shows stark contrast to what we've been seeing on universities lately, such as Columbia University, Harvard, etc. You're showing how the Ivy Leagues embraces a cancel culture, especially a cancel Trump culture. So he's going to a place where it's going to be a little safer for him, but he does want to make inroads to college students, especially of voting age, because that is going to be what I believe is going to be determining the outcome for the midterms next year. So all these things are wrapped up in politics, but I hope he has a little bit of fun too, because honestly, we're all celebrating all the new graduates for a class of 2025.
Angie, with your perspective, I do want to transition, as I did mention earlier at the highlight of this interview. We are looking ahead to the 8 o'clock hour when that White House press briefing will get underway, hosted by Caroline Leavitt. Again, we have seen those morning press briefings leading up to the official week of President Donald Trump and his administration's first 100 days of his second term. What do you think we can expect today? Again, border security, the economy, transportation has been highlighted. What would you say are some more wins of the Trump administration? Also, what would you say are some things that need to be done better by the Republican Party?
Absolutely. Well, we had border czar Tom Homan kick off the week with basically successes of closing down the open border that was causing so much trouble to the American economy and also to our safety. So he highlighted that, and that was a great kickoff. What Trump in the press room is doing right now is showcasing all the things that they've done in the first 100 days. So they're marching out the secretaries to discuss what they've been doing. Scott Bessent is coming out to speak about the economy and the tariffs. And that is going to be very important because there's been so much market uncertainty, and business leaders across the world are saying, hey, what's going on here? One day we have full tariffs, next day we don't, then we have a 90-day freeze, and then you're going to do exemptions for iPhones and semiconductors and whatnot. There's just too much uncertainty. It's causing world markets to go crazy. So I think that one of the things that will come out from some of these early morning press conferences is some, just some stability and just some sort of indication on what Trump is thinking. This is, it's one thing to deliver on campaign promises, but another thing to actually deliver on good governance. And I think that is the transition that we need to see from the Trump administration. Thank you very much for promising all those things that you said on the campaign trail, but now how does that translate now to actually global governance? And that's what the U.S. is here to do. And I think we need some direction from the Trump administration and his secretaries on how that's going to work.
Yeah, Angie, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we have heard criticism from both sides of the aisle, and the Trump presidency administration, President Donald Trump being very candid. He said, hey, look, you all voted for me. You all elected me to be the next commander in chief. These are things that I ran on. You all knew what was going to take place when I got to the White House.
Yeah, absolutely. But, the rollout is going to be a lot different than a Trump rally, right? We do need to show some diplomacy, and we need to show that we understand geopolitics. And it's a slow burn for the Trump administration. They had the first 100 days to kind of ramp up. They've enjoyed a great honeymoon period, but now the work has to get done. And I think a lot of the critics are starting to see the cracks in this because they don't understand Trump and his style. He works in chaos, and he enjoys that. And he actually works really well in chaos, but it disrupts everybody else. So until people understand that that is his style, especially world leaders, they don't know how to approach him, and they don't know how to approach these tariff deals. I suspect that we're going to start seeing some tariff deals being announced pretty soon. And when that happens, I'm sure the market will react very favorably. But right now, there's a lot of market uncertainty. So if there's one criticism I could make, would be to give some ease to the world leaders and to world business owners. to what's going on here, because it's causing a freeze in the market for buying and any sort of movement. And I think that would be something that would be very welcomed, especially at a press conference at the White House.
Miami GOP committee woman Angie Wong, a pleasure having you join us here on the show to talk politics this Thursday morning. Thank you so much for your detailed breakdown and your perspective. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And as we further discuss your top political headlines, I do want to take you back out to the White House here at 611 on the East Coast. If you're just now tuning in, a very busy day in the political world. It starts off with that White House press briefing this morning, slated for 8:30 Eastern time. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will lead the charge, where we continue to dissect and understand the wins and what more needs to be done for the first 100 days. We also know that today, VP Vance traveling alongside the administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin. They are traveling to South Carolina to tour Nucor Steel Berkeley. That's a steel manufacturing facility. While there, they will give remarks highlighting America's manufacturing renaissance during the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And then later tonight, during the 8 o'clock hour, President Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief, he will deliver that commencement speech at the University of Alabama. Of course, all of these events, when we get those live feeds, we do bring them to you in full right here on Live Now from Fox. 6:12 here on the East Coast. Let's step aside for a quick 2-minute commercial break. Our first of the hour. We'll be right back with more top stories and headlines of your Thursday. .614 here on the East Coast, and welcome back to Live Now from Fox. Turning to a news alert in the case of a Maryland man mistakenly deported from the U.S. to El Salvador. We have new details this morning as we're learning more about a second protective order Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife filed against him as the fight continues to bring him home. We want to check in now with Fox 5 DC's Melanie Onwig. She joins us live at the White House with the very latest details. Melanie, good morning.
Good morning, Janae. So a lot of new things swirling about in the court of public opinion. Meanwhile, in a federal court in Maryland, new developments there as well, where the judge is now allowing depositions of Trump administration officials to go forward as she weighs whether to charge them with contempt of court for failing to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States. Now, we talked about that second protective order. His wife, Jennifer, once again, defending her husband after this other protective order has surfaced. In this one, dated August 2020, Vasquez accuses her husband of locking their children in a room, physically abusing her, and threatening to kill her. Now, again, that was in August of 2020. A different protective order was filed a year later in 2021. It was after that order became public that Jennifer Vasquez said the couple sought counseling, and she decided not to follow through with civil actions. No charges were filed. Now, in a letter to President Trump, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen says this is not about one man, but it is about the rule of law and due process. Van Hollen revealed that during his visit to El Salvador, the country's vice president told him they have no legal basis to hold Abrego Garcia or any of the other detainees, explaining, quote, "We have a deal with the U.S. government. They send people, we host them, they pay, and that's it." During an Oval Office interview, President Trump said he could bring Abrego Garcia back, but won't because he, quote, "is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland." Trump also posting on Truth Social his belief that Mr. Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13 and that he, the president, must be allowed to do his job. So the judge has ordered depositions from 4 Trump administration officials, 1 from the State Department, 1 from the Department of Homeland Security, and 2 from Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Those depositions must be completed by next Friday. Jeanne?
All right, a lot of eyes on the latest developments. Melanie Onwick there with Fox 5 DC. Thank you so much for the detailed breakdown, Melanie. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. So we are keeping a close eye on the latest developments, all things Trump presidency. Melanie Onwick joining us live there from the White House, transitioning to give you a live look at the White House here at 6:17 on the East Coast. We are going to step aside for a quick 2-minute commercial break. When we come back, following some breaking news out in the Middle East, the details in just 2 quick minutes. Don't go anywhere. .20 here on the East Coast. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, and good morning to you if you're just now tuning in. I'm Jeanne Francine. We do want to transition from your political headlines right now as we are following some breaking news. Take a look at your screen. It takes us out to the Middle East. That is the southern Israel-Gaza border. You are getting a live look there, getting this breaking news from our content partners over at the Associated Press as they report this Thursday morning that several countries are sending firefighters firefighting aircraft to Israel this Thursday as crews battle for a second day to extinguish a wildfire that had shut down a major highway linking Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It also sent drivers scrambling from their cars. We actually have some video that I want to share with you, further showing you how all of this started, also showing you from those major roadways and highways how it did impact motorists. We are learning the fire broke out around midday Wednesday, fueled by hot, dry conditions and fanned by strong winds that quickly whipped up the flames, burning through a pine forest. Several communities were evacuated as a precaution as the smoke turned the skies over Jerusalem gray. Further learning this Thursday morning that Israel's fire and rescue services, they do warn the public to stay away from parks or forests and to be exceptionally careful while lighting barbecues. Thursday, which is today, is Israel's Independence Day, which is typically marked with large family cookouts in parks and forests. We are learning at this time at least 12 people were treated in hospitals Wednesday evening, mainly due to smoke inhalation, while another 10 people were treated in a field, according to local ambulance services. At this time, Italy, Croatia, Spain, France, and Romania, they are sending planes to help battle these flames, while several other countries, including North Macedonia and Cyprus, they are also sending water-dropping aircraft. Israeli authorities saying 10 firefighting planes were operating this Thursday morning, with another 8 aircraft to arrive during the course of the day. The main highway linking Jerusalem to Tel Aviv is open this Thursday, a day after the flames had encroached on the road, forcing drivers to abandon their cars and flee in terror. This morning, broad swaths of burned areas are visible from the highway, while pink anti-flame retardant dusted the top of burned trees and bushes. Smoke and the smell of fire is hanging heavy in the air. I do want to transition back to this live look that we are getting at the Israel-Gaza border this Thursday morning, and you can see smoke still there in the distance. This is a developing story, so make sure you are staying tuned to Live Now from Fox for the latest developments. Let's go ahead and step aside for a quick break as we continue with your top stories and headlines, also looking for some Thursday morning live events. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. Before the break, we were showing you this live look as several countries this Thursday morning, they are sending firefighting planes to help Israel tackle a major wildfire. You can see the smoke there still in the distance as the Israel-Gaza border is in plain sight this Thursday morning. Speaking of Middle East conflict, we know that throughout the day and even on this Thursday, this live event, it takes us out to The Hague, Netherlands, where the International Court of Justice, they continue for a third day to discuss accusations against Israel. Now, these accusations, they relate to Middle East conflict as relates to the Gaza war, also with humanitarian concerns for the Palestinian people. Let's listen in, and I'll pop up some boxes on your screen of other top stories.
To conclude on this first point, Israel has obligations under the Charter to take all necessary and effective measures to ensure, without delay, in full collaboration with the United Nations and third states, the unhindered provisions at scale of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance. This can be achieved only by lifting the blockade, dramatically increasing the number and capacity of land crossing points, and keeping them open. Secondly, Israel has an obligation to respect the establishment and conduct of foreign relations by the representatives of Palestinian people with international organizations and third states. This includes the obligation not to impede the right of Palestine and its people to decide freely as to its external relations, and, relatedly, the obligation for Israel not to impede Palestine's conduct of its foreign relations, notably Palestine's relations with the United Nations, including UNRWA, other international organizations and third states, and their representation to Palestine and its people in and in relation to the occupied Palestinian territory. Third and finally, Israel has an obligation to permit and facilitate assistance, including free passage in transit through Israel of necessary civilian supplies, personnel and equipment from the United Nations, other international organizations, and third states. Notable in this regard is the codification of customary international law, represented especially by Articles 7, 8, and 9, of the Convention on the Safety of United Nations and Associated Personnel, which was adopted by consensus by the General Assembly. The rules of customary international law codified in the Safety Convention oblige Israel to facilitate the unimpeded transit of UNRWA and other UN personnel across its territory and from one part of the occupied Palestinian territory to another. Mr. President, honorable members of the court, Norway trusts that the court, in its advisory opinion, will assist the United Nations in the furtherance of its permanent responsibility for the former mandated territory of Palestine, and that it will also assist the United Nations, other international organizations, and third states in their efforts to realize the right to self-determination for the peoples affected by the conflict, based on the vision of two states living in peace within secure and recognized borders. Mr. President, members of the court, I come to the end of Norway's oral statement. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representatives of Norway for their presentation. This concludes this morning's sitting. The oral proceedings will resume this afternoon at 3 p.m. in order for Pakistan, Panama, Poland, Qatar, and the United Kingdom to be heard on the questions submitted to the court. The sitting is closed.
So this wraps the end of this particular hearing. But as I mentioned, they happened throughout the day. I want to play out some of the remarks from earlier from other world representatives as they continue to share with the court their accusations against Israel. Again, these relate to the Gaza war, also with humanitarian concerns.
in the occupying territories to provide essential supplies. Israel has stated that it has a broad discretion to administer the occupied territory, but such a high-level assertion is of limited assistance, noting that in any event, this court has confirmed that administrative duty is to be exercised for the benefit of the local population. More instructive is to ask, what do the specific rules on relief in occupied territories say? If an occupying power is not itself providing essential supplies, such as water, it must agree to relief schemes. Article 59 of the Fourth Geneva Convention is clear on that. It's also clear that Israel, as the occupying power, retains in principle a discretion as to which humanitarian organisation provides the relief scheme, provided that there is more than one that can do so in practice. And it is not obliged to agree to relief from a humanitarian organisation that is not impartial. And it's through that prism of impartiality that an occupying power's security or military interests may be accommodated within the carefully calibrated legal framework. The Maldives makes 6 points. First, the intended meaning of impartiality is to be informed by the Red Cross principles, which focus on who the organisation offers aid to. It's impartial if it brings relief to the local population without any adverse distinction. Israel's written statement demonstrates that Israel's complaint, in fact, concerns an alleged lack of neutrality. Contrary to what was submitted yesterday, neutrality is, on its ordinary terms, a separate concept, requiring that the organisation does not take sides in hostilities or engage in controversies of a political, racial, religious or ideological nature. The Maldives accepts, however, that neutrality must also be relevant to the interpretation of Article 59, read in context. My second point is that lack of either impartiality or neutrality must be assessed objectively. The Maldives does not accept Israel's submission that it depends on what the occupying power perceives. That would be an unworkable standard open to abuse. Third, and relatedly, there must be sufficient evidence of that objective matter. That is consistent with the well-established interpretive principle of effectiveness and the obligation of good faith performance of a treaty obligation. It's also consistent with the position of several states in the negotiations of an article concerning relief in Additional Protocol 1, namely that refusal of such relief must not be for, I quote, arbitrary or capricious reasons. Here, Israel has had opportunities to share relevant evidence, but, as noted by the Secretary-General, has chosen not to do so. My fourth point, even when individual humanitarian workers engage in conduct that violates principles of impartiality or neutrality, that does not necessarily mean the organisation itself loses any claim to be impartial or neutral. Even taking Israel's case at its highest, of UNRWA's total personnel of some 30,000, it's less than 5% that Israel alleges in its written statement are not neutral. Further, the UN has found through 2 separate investigations that the evidence shows that Israel's allegations against UNRWA itself are unfounded, as highlighted by many participants this week. My fifth point, in circumstances where there is only one impartial humanitarian organisation that can, in practice, provide the essential supplies, the occupying power's discretion is necessarily limited. Yesterday it was submitted that the court should not address certain factual issues. Sufficiency of information is for the court's assessment. And on the factual question of whether UNRWA plays a unique role in delivering humanitarian assistance to Palestinians, there's an abundance of evidence. Finally and critically, the occupying power's discretion to refuse a relief scheme is limited by its overriding duty to ensure population needs are in fact met. Is Israel fulfilling this duty? The reality on the ground, which Israel insists should be the focus, demonstrates that it is not. This is reflected in the horrifying information collated by the Maldives with respect to water supplies across the occupied territories. And indeed, as recalled earlier this week, Israel's own Prime Minister stated that as of the 2nd of March, I quote, "The entry of all goods and supplies to the Gaza Strip will be halted." Turning now to the second of my three core questions, can Israel's security or military interests serve as a basis to restrict, disrupt, or otherwise impede the activities of UNRWA in providing essential supplies in the occupied territories? Reflecting the careful balancing of interests only in prescribed circumstances which do not apply here. The Maldives refers to three provisions of the Fourth Geneva Convention addressing occupied territories. First, Article 63 provides that measures may be imposed with respect to the activities of a relief society, but the reasons for the measure must be an urgent one of security. The measures can only be temporary and exceptional, and there's an implicit requirement of proportionality between the security objective and the measure taken. A contrario, an occupying power cannot rely upon reasons of security to justify the general suspension of all humanitarian activities in an occupied territory, or, as in this case, to implement legislation which has as its objective or effect the permanent dismantling of UNRWA. The second provision is the fourth paragraph of Article 59, addressing a right to search consignments and regulate their passage. On its plain terms, this right does not apply to an occupying power. In any event, that right, whilst potentially informed by security concerns, must be exercised in a proportionate and targeted manner. Specifically, it cannot undermine the very purpose of Article 59, which is to ensure the population is adequately supplied, or the occupying power's separate obligation to facilitate rapid distribution of consignments pursuant to Article 61. The third provision is Article 60, and this provides that it is only in cases of urgent necessity and in the interests of the population of the occupied territory that the occupying power may divert relief consignments from the purpose for which they were intended. So, it's a power of diversion, not cessation, and while security interests could be relevant, the interests of the population remain paramount. The third core question.
So you're listening into this morning event we just saw live as it did wrap for the day, but I did want to provide further perspective for you and play out another speaker from early this morning. This as the International Court of Justice, they hold hearings this Thursday into accusations against Israel, ranging from the Gaza war to humanitarian concerns, is happening out in The Hague, Netherlands. On the right side of your screen, some active boxes. That top right one, a live look at the Israel-Gaza border as at this hour, a wildfire continues to burn in Israel for the second day. And then that bottom box giving you a live look out in Madrid, Spain, here at 6:39 on the East Coast, as Spain's far-right Vox party, they're holding a no work, no home, no security, and no lights rally in Madrid on this May Day. We are going to step aside for a quick 2-minute commercial break. When we come back, a live event for those of you all who love all things space. This coming in on X, formerly known as Twitter, courtesy of NASA. It says, got everything? We're putting this starter pack to use in real life. Just saying that out for you in case you didn't know what IRL stands for. It says tune in as Astro Animal and Astro Air step outside the space station this Thursday for a spacewalk. Live coverage about to get underway. We're going to step aside for a quick 2-minute break, and when we come back, heading into that live coverage for you. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Jeanne Francine. Continuing with your live events of your Thursday morning, it takes us out to coverage of the U.S. Spacewalk 93 that's happening at the International Space Station. I am being told we do have audio on this feed. Let's listen in.
Views of Nicole Ayers on the left. She's EV2 today during the spacewalk, as well as Anne McClain in the suit with the red stripes. She will be EV1. First spacewalk for Ayers and the third for McClain. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th spacewalk in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades, and it will be the third spacewalk of 2025, but just the very first of Expedition 73. And pre-positioned in the airlock already, you see behind our spacewalkers today that long bag. That's the strut bag where some of the modification kit is housed. The crew will be utilizing that later in today's spacewalk to actually build the modification kit.
Three, two, one. End exercise. Almost there. Cycle 9 in 3, 2, 1. Start exercise.
McClain and Ayers are continuing to work through those in-suit light exercise activities, or ILE. Earlier this morning, they worked through procedures to pre-breathe 100% oxygen, which helps to purge nitrogen from their bodies. And then these ILE activities help to further purge additional nitrogen. These movements help to acclimate their bodies to the lower pressure of the spacesuit and will purge that excess nitrogen to avoid getting the bends or decompression sickness, similar to what divers on Earth might experience. At normal pressure, the suit is pressurized to 4.3 pounds per square inch. For a little context, here on Earth, the pressure is about 14.7 pounds per square inch, so that 4.3 pounds per square inch in the spacesuit is similar to what you would experience at an elevation of roughly 30,000 feet, which is why that pre-breathe and ILE procedures are critical. Again, the primary tasks for today's spacewalk is to install a support bracket called a modification kit. This kit helps to prepare the site for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs. Today's installation will take place on the 2A location of the International Space Station, and McLean and Ayers will install the modification kit to the mass canister at the base of the original solar arrays. Additionally,
3, 2, 1, end exercise.
Additionally, the duo will relocate.
Oh, so close now.
Additionally, the crew will relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2 antenna, which will ensure better redundancy and communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station.
Last cycle in 3, 2, 1, start exercise.
We're continuing to get live views inside the International Space Station as NASA astronaut Anne McLean on the right of your screen in the suit with the red stripes, and NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers on the left of your screen prepare for today's spacewalk. Their task today will be to install a support bracket called a modification kit ahead of upcoming solar array installation. The duo is currently stepping through procedures to purge excess nitrogen from their body by utilizing a procedure called in-suit light exercise, or IL. Once the IL exercises are complete, the duo will be moved into the crew lock portion of the International Space Station, which is where that strut bag is located just directly behind them. At this point, the hatch will be closed and depressurization procedures will take place. But we'll continue to provide live coverage and step through all of those procedures alongside you.
3, 2, 1. End exercise. You made it. I would say give yourself a pat on the back, but you know.
And coming into view on your screen there is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Anushi, as well as NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. They will be assisting McLean and Ayers this morning.
Airlock Houston, you are go to pick up in step 16 of EMU pre-breathe when you're ready. As for step 15, we see that's not complete yet. That can be done at any time. Copy OK.
And coming into view now on your screen, you do see some of the tethers that will be utilized during today's spacewalk, as well as the pistol grip tool, or PGT. And you see Onishi working to get those tethers secured to NASA astronaut Anne McLean in the suit with the red stripes on the right of your screen. Again, Onishi working to secure some of the tethers and tools that will be utilized during today's spacewalk to NASA astronaut Anne McLean on the right of your screen. And now NASA astronaut Johnny Kim will work to do the same on NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers on the left of your screen, who will be serving as EV2 during today's spacewalk. Of note, on the lower left of your screen is the pistol grip tool, or PGT. It's essentially a space drill that will be utilized frequently during today's spacewalk to secure bolts ahead of the build of the modification kit. And another view here on your screen of NASA astronaut Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, who are spacewalkers for today. They're being assisted getting their tools and tethers and all the equipment that they need for today's spacewalk by NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. The primary tasks for McClain and Ayers today is to install a support bracket called a modification kit, which will prepare the site for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station Rollout Solar Arrays, or IROSAs. The crew will also relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2. This antenna relocation will ensure better redundancy and communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station. You're looking at a live view here inside Mission Control Houston in Vicar 1, the flight control room for the International Space Station. Today's team is being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo, who you see there on your screen. And we are in a brief handover period between satellites, but do expect to get views and communications with the crew again here shortly.
All right, so if you're just now tuning into Live Now from Fox, you heard the moderator there say they are in a handover period. This is right here on Live Now from Fox. We are watching coverage of the U.S. Spacewalk 93 at the International Space Station. My producer, Juliana Maya, providing some bullet points there to the left of your screen. If you're unfamiliar with this spacewalk, 2 NASA astronauts will conduct the 5th all-female spacewalk. NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers will install solar arrays. Today marks the 275th spacewalk in history. We will continue with this live event. I'm Jeanne Francine. We're going to step aside for a quick 2-minute commercial break. We'll be right back. 7:07 here on the East Coast, and welcome back to Live Now from Fox. We continue to follow this breaking news out of Israel. We first brought it to you during our 6 o'clock hour, as several countries are sending firefighting aircraft to Israel this Thursday as crews battle for a second day to extinguish a wildfire that had shut down a major highway linking Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. We're also learning it sent drivers scrambling from their cars. Now, this is the second day of this fire. The fire broke out around midday on Wednesday, and I actually have some video I can share with you to further provide perspective of what it looked like from the highway view. Again, it broke out Wednesday, fueled by hot, dry conditions, fanned by strong winds that quickly whipped up the flames, burning through a pine forest. We are learning several communities were evacuated as a precaution as the smoke turned the skies over Jerusalem gray. Now, Israel's Fire and Rescue Authority, they do warn the public this Thursday morning to stay away from parks or forests and to be careful while lighting barbecues. Well, that's because today is Israel's Independence Day, which is typically marked with large family cookouts in parks and forests. We will continue to follow all of these updates right here on Live Now from Fox. Transitioning, we do have another live event. I want to share it with you. It's not in English, but it is a live look as several entities around the world are celebrating May Day. Cubans this morning, you're getting a live look there in Havana, Cuba. They are marking the International Workers' Day with a massive gathering there in Havana, Cuba. Cubans marking the International Workers' Day, coming together again. Remarks not in English, but as they did transition the shot there, you can see droves, thousands upon thousands of people flocking there to Havana, Cuba to celebrate this International Workers' Day. Of course, as we get different live looks, we're getting international looks throughout the morning, but right here in the U.S., we'll have several looks across D.C., New York, Georgia, several events, even learning that Bernie Sanders is participating in a May Day event on this Thursday. He will actually be participating in a May Day rally in Philadelphia. So, of course, again, as we get these different rallies, you will get them right here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to transition, though, back to this live event as we are keeping a close eye on this spacewalk. If you're just now tuning in, I want to set the stage for you. This is coverage of U.S. Spacewalk 93 at the International Space Station. Let's continue to watch and listen in.
And here on your screen, we are continuing to get views of NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the right hand of your screen, and NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers, who will be our spacewalkers today. Assisting there in the middle of the screen is JAXA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. He's currently working to configure Anne McClain's spacesuit so that it is ready to go for them to step outside of the hatch. The spacewalkers today are wearing the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU, spacesuit, which is essentially an individual human-sized spacecraft containing its own portable life support system.
Airlock Houston, we see you've closed the thermal cover. Before step 4, we were looking for a porous plate inspection. Could you get one of that? Could you get that for us, please?
Good catch, will do it.
Copy, thanks.
Again, you are seeing JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi step through procedures to configure NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit there on the right hand of your screen. Assisting is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. Earlier this morning, McClain and Ayres completed pre-breathing exercises, which consisted of breathing 100% oxygen. And then the second phase, the crew got into their spacesuits and conducted something called the in-suit light exercises, or IL, which they move their legs and arms slightly, which helps raise their metabolic rate to speed up getting rid of excess nitrogen. These are precautionary measures that are done before spacewalks to ensure that the spacewalkers do not suffer from decompression sickness. And we're getting a good view inside of Nicole Ayres' spacesuit as Takuya Onishi steps through procedures to configure it ahead of today's spacewalk. The spacewalk will officially begin when the crew switches their suits to internal battery power. And on your screen, you do see JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi working again on Nicole Ayers' spacesuit. He's installing Medox canisters onto her spacesuit because the crew will be in the vacuum of space. They rely on the spacesuit. It's their primary life support system, essentially a mini spacecraft that has everything that they need to keep them safe in the vacuum of space.
Houston Air One 1, both crew members, Taurus flight looks good.
Copy. Both places look good. Thanks, Tuck.
Houston Air One, step 11, recorded GMT 11:19.
11:19. Copy.
Continuing to get views inside the International Space Station's airlock as NASA astronaut Anne McLean on the right of your screen and Nicole Ayers on the left of your screen prepare for today's spacewalk. The primary tasks for the spacewalkers today is to install a support bracket called a modification kit, which will prepare the International Space Station for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs. Today's location will be taking place at the 2A, where the bracket will be installed. And the astronauts will install the modification kit to the mass canister at the base of the original solar arrays. Additionally, the crew will also relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle or C2V2 antenna to ensure better redundancy in communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station. Assisting inside the airlock, assisting inside the airlock today is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim, who you see there in the center of your screen, as well as JAXA astronaut Takoya Onishi. Next up, they're going to work together to get the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue installed onto today's spacewalkers. The safer is essentially a jetpack that would help propel the crew to safety should they become untethered.
0012 for the expanded MEDOX for step 18.
Good numbers, thank you.
Once the safers are installed, the duo will complete some additional checks of their spacesuits to make sure everything is configured properly, including some communications checks with the team here on the ground. And then they'll get the go to move into the crew airlock for depressurization. Once the crew airlock is at a pressure of 0 or equivalent to the vacuum of space.
Moving into pre-breathe clock, 1124, 1124.
1124, copy.
Again, once the crew airlock is depressurized down to vacuum, the crew will get the go to open up the hatch and step outside the International Space Station to begin work for today's spacewalk to install an additional set, to install a mounting bracket ahead of the installation of an additional set of International Space Station rollout arrays, as well as to relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft to the International Space Station.
We continue to watch this live coverage courtesy of NASA, the U.S. Spacewalk 93 at the International Space Station. As we continue to watch this, just want to provide this content note. The official special astronaut spacewalk that will kick off at 8 o'clock this morning Eastern time, so we are almost there. That top right box, I want to provide a perspective as to what you are looking. Bob Kelly with Fox 29 putting out on X that currently Skyfox is over an overturned trailer that we're learning was carrying some vehicles. As they further pan out that shot, you can see this happening along I-95 North. It's closed right here at this section, so definitely impacting morning commutes for those that live in the area. Further learning that the exact location is Feltonville. So if you're in that area, make sure you are planning ahead. We're also keeping a close eye out in the Middle East this Thursday morning, 7:27 here on the East Coast, and you can see a fire continues to burn, learning that several entities are actually sending aid to help put the blaze out. We are going to step aside for a quick break. More top stories and headlines when we return. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, and good morning to you if you're just now tuning in. I'm Jeanne Francine. We continue to follow this developing story out in Pennsylvania. Bob Kelly with Fox 29 putting this out on X moments ago that Skyfox, they continue to follow this overturned trailer that was carrying cars. The location is I-95 North in Feltonville, Pennsylvania. I want to share with you that live look as Skyfox continues to monitor this developing story. You can see traffic is backed up for miles. Again, if you further look in, and they have this wide scale view to show you how much the impact is in the area. But if they do decide to pan closer, which they are doing now, thank you so much, you can see that overturned trailer. Again, we are learning that trailer was carrying vehicles. So as they get closer in, it is a shaded area. So we do hope you can see the images that are on the screen. No word of any injuries of the driver. If the driver is okay, of course, sending our thoughts and prayers to the driver of that trailer. But of course, as we get more information, you will get that story here on Live Now from Fox. We also continue to follow the very latest of May Day. On this Thursday morning, it is May 1st, taking you out and giving you a live look out in Havana, Cuba. Thousands gathering this morning in Revolution Square on May Day, attended by the former president and revolutionary leader, courtesy of the Associated Press. And we're also learning the Cuban president is in attendance as well. You can see thousands upon thousands of people in attendance for this May Day. We'll get several international and stateside May Days we'll share with you, including one which will be out in stateside of Georgia, D.C., New York. Also learning that there will be a May Day action in Philadelphia, where Bernie Sanders will be in attendance and possibly give some remarks. So we will continue to follow that here on Live Now from Fox. Getting back to this anticipated event, though, many of you all have been following it from the very beginning as we're sharing with you live coverage, U.S. Spacewalk 93 at the International Space Station. Again, that official spacewalk slated for 8 o'clock this morning Eastern Time, but those preliminary measures underway with live commentary. Let's continue to listen in.
To get Nicole Ayers' space safer installed on her spacesuit. She's wearing the spacesuit with the unmarked. She's wearing the spacesuit that is unmarked today and is serving as EV2. And as NASA astronaut Anne McClain continues to get her safer, simplified aid for EVA rescue installed on her spacesuit, let's take a look at the tasks planned for today's spacewalk.
Our day will start with astronaut Anne McClain as EV1 in the red stripes and Nicole Ayers as EV2. Nicole will carry an 8-foot-long strut bag, and Anne will carry the tool bag. Both crew members will translate to the port side of the International Space Station, heading to the work site of the Modification Kit Structure, or MOD Kit. At that location, they will secure their two bags and begin the installation activity. Nicole will start the modification activity by removing the strut out of the bag to assemble the upper triangle. The upper triangle consists of two struts and a mounting bracket. Nicole will then hand the triangle to Anne, who will install it on the mast canister of the Beta Gimbal Assembly, or BGA structure. The crew will then proceed with the installation of the right lower strut and the right mid strut on the right side of the mast canister. After that, the crew will move to the left side of the mast canister to perform the same order of operations, beginning with the left lower strut, followed by the left mid strut. Once all the struts are installed, the crew will cover both mid struts with multi-layer insulation, or MLI, and route the cables of the roll-out solar array in support of future spacewalks. This step concludes the MOD Kit installation. The next stop is the relocation of the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle boom, or C2B2. The crew will begin by translating to the worksite located on the P3 truss segment of the integrated truss structure, also on the port side of the vehicle. The crew will start by removing the C2B2 boom from the base, attaching an extension to the base, and installing the boom at the end of the extension. This action shifts the antenna boom by 1.5 feet, clearing the antennas from structural blockage. These steps conclude the relocation of the C2B2 boom. Finally, Nicole translates back to the P4 location to pick up the tool bag, while Anne starts her translation back to the airlock. Shortly after, Nicole begins her translation back to the airlock as well. Both crew members will ingress the International Space Station through the airlock, completing their planned 6 hours and 30 minutes spacewalk.
And that is an overview of the tasks we can expect during today's spacewalk. We are getting views back inside the International Space Station. Here on your screen, on the right-hand side of your screen, is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. He's working to install the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue on NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit. She will be serving as EV1 today and wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes. Also on the left of your screen is NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers preparing for her very first spacewalk. She's wearing the spacesuit that is unmarked.
Compelling coverage this Thursday morning as the U.S. Spacewalk 93 is underway at the ISS. They continue with the checklist as NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers will soon install solar arrays, today marking the 275th spacewalk in history as these two NASA astronauts conduct the 5th all-female spacewalk. Again, that official spacewalk will take place at 8 o'clock this morning Eastern time. So we're just about 20 minutes away from that happening. Also keeping in that watch box, that live developing story out of Pennsylvania, as we are learning there is an overturned trailer that was carrying some vehicles there in Feltonville. We're keeping a close eye on that. You can see traffic backed up for miles. Stepping aside for a quick 2-minute commercial break. We'll be right back. .42 here on the East Coast, and welcome back to Live Now from Fox. Let's continue to watch and listen in as the final checkpoints are underway for U.S. Spacewalk 93 at the International Space Station. That official spacewalk with NASA astronauts Ann McClain and Nicole Ayers to install those solar arrays will kick off in just about 18 minutes. So we'll continue to watch that. And then, of course, that watch box on your screen of that overturned trailer out in Feltonville, PA, as we are learning that trailer was carrying some vehicles. No word yet on the condition of the driver.
McClain in the spacesuit with the red stripes, now in the crew lock portion of the International Space Station. This will be her third spacewalk of her career. Next up to join her in the crew lock will be NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers, preparing for her very first spacewalk of her career. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. Primary tasks today are to install a modification kit ahead of future power solar array upgrades for the International Space Station, as well as relocate a communications antenna for visiting vehicles or spacecraft to the International Space Station. And now coming into your view, you see the SAFER again. That's that simplified aid for EVA rescue. NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA astronaut Takoya Onishi are going to work to install that on Nicole Ayers. That SAFER is worn as a precautionary measure in the unlikely event that a crew member should become untethered from the International Space Station. The SAFER is essentially a jetpack that would allow them to get back to the International Space Station to retether themselves.
As we continue to watch this checklist, a dead period right now with no audio as they are fixing this piece of equipment. So we're going to go ahead and take our final break of the hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just 2 quick minutes. .47 here on the East Coast. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. And good morning to you. If you're just now tuning in, I'm Jeanne Francine. We'll get right back to that pre-coverage of the spacewalk. But I do want to share with you a quick content reminder here on Live Now from Fox as we are looking ahead to 8:30 this morning Eastern Time. That is when we will have an early morning White House press briefing with spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt. We do know this week marks the first 100 days of the second term of the Trump administration, and Caroline Leavitt has shared many wins, as they call it, of the Trump administration. She touted from the White House the latest of the economy, transportation, border security. So a lot to discuss on that front. Of course, we'll share it with you live, raw, and uninterrupted when it gets underway. We're also knowing that a lot is happening with VP J.D. Vance today. Vice President Vance and the administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, they will travel to South Carolina this Thursday to tour Nucor Steel Berkeley. That's a steel manufacturing facility. We're also learning that VP Vance and Administrator Zeldin, they will give remarks highlighting America's manufacturing renaissance during the first 100 days of the Trump administration. Then if we look at the agenda later tonight, the Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump, he will deliver commencement remarks at the University of Alabama. That is slated for around 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight, give or take. It might happen a few minutes before or after, but of course, all of these political events, we will have them for you right here on Live Now from Fox. All right, let me get back to your coverage. I know you're like, Gina, all right, let's get back to the space coverage. I got you covered. Here we are as we're following the very latest, as we continue to do the very latest of U.S. Spacewalk 93 at the International Space Station, giving you that look. And then, of course, keeping in that watch box, that overturned trailer out in PA. We are learning that a trailer was carrying some cars. No word yet on the condition of the driver.
And if you are just joining us this morning, we're continuing to bring you live coverage of a spacewalk outside the International Space Station to install a mounting bracket ahead of upcoming solar array installation. Today's spacewalkers are NASA astronaut Anne McClain, who will be wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes, as well as Nicole Ayers, who will be wearing the unmarked spacesuit. This will be the third spacewalk for McClain and the very first for Ayers. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades, and it will be the third spacewalk of the year, but the very first for Expedition 73. Here on the ground, there is a team supporting our spacewalking duo being led by Flight Director Diana Trujillo. At this time, McClain and Ayers are suited up in their spacesuits and are preparing for depressurization here shortly. We are in a brief handover period between our satellites, but we'll get views again of the crew here shortly. And if you're just joining us, we're continuing to bring you live coverage of today's Spacewalk, the 275th, in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. We are in a handover period between our satellites, but we do expect to gain communications with the crew here in a little less than 8 minutes. So let's take a look at some of the tasks for today's Spacewalk.
Our day will start with astronaut Anne McLean as EV1 in the red stripes and Nicole Ayers as EV2. Nicole will carry an 8-foot-long strut bag, and Anne will carry the tool bag. Both crew members will translate to the port side of the International Space Station, heading to the work site of the Modification Kit Structure, or MOD Kit. At that location, they will secure their tool bags and begin the installation activity. Nicole will start the modification activity by removing the strut out of the bag to assemble the upper triangle. The upper triangle consists of 2 struts and a mounting bracket. Nicole will then hand the triangle to Anne, who will install it on the mass canister of the Beta Gimbal Assembly, or BGA structure. The crew will then proceed with the installation of the right lower strut and the right mid strut on the right side of the mast canister. After that, the crew will move to the left side of the mast canister to perform the same order of operations, beginning with the left lower strut, followed by the left mid strut. Once all the struts are installed, the crew will cover both mid-struts with multi-layer insulation, or MLI, and route the cables of the roll-out solar array in support of future spacewalks. This step concludes the MOD Kit installation. The next stop is the relocation of the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle Boom, or C2B2. The crew will begin by translating to the worksite located on the P3 truss segment of the integrated truss structure, also on the port side of the vehicle. The crew will start by removing the C2B2 boom from the base, attaching an extension to the base, and installing the boom at the end of the extension. This action shifts the antenna boom by 1.5 feet, clearing the antennas from structural blockage. These steps conclude the relocation of the C2B2 boom. Finally, Nicole translates back to the P4 location to pick up the tool bag, while Anne starts her translation back to the airlock. Shortly after, Nicole begins her translation back to the airlock as well. Both crew members will ingress the International Space Station through the airlock, completing their planned 6 hours and 30 minutes spacewalk.
And that was an overview of some of the tasks that we can expect during today's spacewalk. Today's team here in Mission Control Houston is being led by Flight Director Deanna Trujillo. The International Space Station is currently flying 271 statute miles off the west coast of Africa.
All right, if you are just joining us here, Gina Francine has been in the hot seat, my colleague there, bringing you that spacewalk that is expected to get underway here in a matter of moments. And what you can see is that QR code on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. If you do want to watch that in full, uninterrupted, just scan that QR code there. We'll leave it up for a bit, and it will take you right over to that spacewalk on our YouTube page. You can also just go to YouTube and search Live Now from Fox. While you're there, hit that subscribe button because we'll bring you updates whenever we get them. If you are just joining us here, it is 8 o'clock on the East Coast.